Hey guys, how are we doing? So I had a message the other day via chess.com, somebody saying, how do I improve at chess? And also adding that they've been trying and unable to get beyond the 200 ELO mark. So there's really not that much out there on YouTube in particular for people who are down at the true beginner level. So what I've got here is I've got a game that I played with a student who's actually in older years and definitely at the beginner level. So we're going to go through this game, and it's a pretty accurate game. It's not perfect, but let me take you through, and I'll try and explain some of the thinking, particularly as it concerns you at the lower level. Okay, so in the game we've got the white pieces, and we start with the move e4. And this is a great first move. The reason why is because, first of all, we're installing a pawn in the center. This is the center of the board, and control over the center of the board is very important at pretty much every stage of the game, but particularly the opening, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish control over the board. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that we want to control more squares than our opponent controls. That gives us more options for where we can put our pieces safely, and it also reduces our opponent's options. So with this move, pawn to e4, we're putting a pawn in the center. This is the center, okay, and we're also controlling another square in the center, which is the d5 square. Okay, now it doesn't stop our opponent from playing, for example, pawn to d5, but we're controlling that, and we're controlling this. So there's two squares in our opponent's half of the board that we are already controlling. Also, our queen controls this square, and our bishop controls these two. All right, all with one move. So this gives white an advantage at the start of the game. Black here plays pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense, and this is more often played at higher levels. And the point of this move is it's controlling this square d4, trying to prevent white from playing their pawn to d4, and thereby controlling really the whole center by having two pawns in the center and control over all of these squares. Okay, we now play knight c3. So a general rule, you want to get one general rule in the opening phase, you want to get your minor pieces out into the board quickly and safely. Your minor pieces are your knights and your bishops. Right? Then what you want to do is you want to get your king castled, either kingside or queenside. Get your queen off the back rank so that your rooks can see each other. When your rooks are connected and protecting each other, they're also controlling and protecting the whole of your back rank, which is, in the case of white, the first rank, and in the case of black, it's the 8th rank. Okay. Black now does similar, brings their knight out, so that knight is controlling these two squares, whereas our knight is controlling these light-coloured squares in the centre. Okay, we now bring out our other knight. Generally, knights before bishops. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that bishops can actually exert an influence over the board without even moving. So this bishop, for example, already controls all of these squares. Right, this bishop isn't doing anything right now because it's blocked off by two pawns. So one of these pawns must move at some point in the game, or else this bishop is never going to have more control over the board and is never going to be able to move out into the board and off the back rank either. Okay, so you've got to move either one of these two for this bishop to come out, and one of these two for this bishop to come out, and the same goes for black. All right. Black now plays pawn to g6, and this is okay. So their plan here, and you should always be asking yourself, why did my opponent make that move? Well, their plan is because they've moved one of these two pawns, it's to enable this bishop to move. Where's it going to go? Most likely to this square, g7. Where it actually enjoys a view down this longest diagonal, right? There's two long diagonals on the board, and bishops are very strong on those diagonals. Also potentially looking down at a valuable piece, which is our rook on a1. Okay, we now bring out our king's bishop. This now means that white is ready to castle kingside, if he wants to do that. We're also looking down at a key pawn here, which is the f pawn. Notice at the start of the game, the f-pawns, Jensen, go away, right? The f-pawns are defended only by one piece. They're only defended by each side's king. Okay, so this is a nice target at many stages of the game. Okay, opponent fianchettos the bishop. That means that they've moved their knight's pawn forward, and they're now tucking the bishop in behind that pawn. Okay, so it's pretty solid. Okay, we now castle. Very important. Get your king to safety. Get your king towards the corner. If you're in a corner, it cuts down your opponent's angles and options for attacking your king. So that's one reason why it's good to castle, and castle early. Another one is that it activates this rook. It gets it out of the corner itself. And these rooks like to come to the central files as well, very often. Okay, black plays pawn to d6, thereby opening up some scope for this bishop. This bishop might come to this square, for example, which is called a pin, because it would mean that this knight here on f3 can't really move, because otherwise the bishop could capture our queen, and the queen is very important. Okay, so we play d3 now. Similar move, opening up this diagonal for our bishop. Black now plays a weak move. This move, pawn to a5, doesn't achieve an awful lot, because what black needs to be doing here is getting these minor pieces out into the board and getting the king castled. And this pawn move doesn't do anything to help that main objective in the opening, which is to get the king to safety and to complete development. So this is, in many ways, a waste of a move. Now you might think, well, maybe they want to get their rook out into the board, but that's not possible because they can't play rook to here, or our bishop will take it. Bishops are worth approximately 3 pawns, whereas rooks are worth around 5 pawns, and the rook becomes more valuable towards the end of the game as the board opens up. All right, so what do we do? Well, we bring out our final minor piece. We've now got all 4 of our minor pieces. Both knights and both bishops are now out in the board. We have also got a pin of our own. So now black's king's pawn here can't move forward to e6 or e5, because otherwise we will capture black's queen. The queen is worth about 9 pawns. Okay, again. So, by the way, this the black player here is one of the chess.com bots. It's rated around 800. Okay, so again, another weaker move from black. They've moved this pawn forward. It doesn't help really the knight come out. It doesn't help them castle. In fact, it could make life harder for them to castle later on, as we'll see. So finally we complete development. This is move 8. This is as quick as it's possible to complete development. We know we've completed development because the rooks can see each other. Our king is safe in the corner. Okay, so the queen's come off the back rank. So the queen and the bishop are now teaming up on this diagonal here, which might come in useful. Black plays their queen in here. And now, this is an instructive point because white has now completed development. Our rooks can see each other. Our king is relatively safe. So now we have moved out of the opening phase of the game, and we're now in what's called the middle game. And in the middle game, your priorities change. You don't want to be moving any piece that you've already moved in the opening more than once unless there's a really good reason to do so. We haven't done that. We've moved the bishops once, right? We've moved the knights once, and all of these pieces are now controlling lots of territory in our opponent's part of the board. Okay, these all doing very well here. Okay, so now what we are doing is we want to improve our pieces. We want to make progress towards our opponent's king if we can, and start to think about an attack. So what do we mean by improving pieces? Well, you want to improve the scope. You want to move your pieces to squares where they are doing something, where they are maybe controlling more squares, but in particular more squares in your opponent's half of the board. And so that's our general idea. So what we want to be doing is to put our pieces on better squares, okay, where they're applying pressure maybe to our opponent. Now here, this move, queen to c7, this opens up an immediate tactical opportunity for white, because our knight here is able to improve itself. knights become stronger as they move up the board because they're short range pieces. They don't move a long way in each move. They become stronger as they move up the board. A knight in the center is great. A knight that's on the 5th rank or the 6th rank is really, really strong. So now our knight has two options moving in here, which each of those moves means that it's attacking black's queen, and black's queen will then have to move because an attack by a knight can't be blocked, and the knight on either of these two squares cannot be captured either. So that queen's going to have to move. So there are two ways to do this. We can play knight to b5 hitting the queen, but then the queen might come here, maybe attack our knight. Notice that this pawn on b2 is undefended. So in the game, we played knight to d5, and that's a great move because we're attacking the queen, but we've also got our knight into our opponent's half of the board. So this queen's going to have to move. She goes back to d1, meaning that this pin from the bishop is now reinstated. That means that black can't push this pawn still without losing his queen. Okay, so the queen's moved back. We now play pawn to c3. What that's doing is it's kind of blunting this bishop, right? It's making life harder for this bishop that's on this nice long diagonal by putting a chain of pawns on that diagonal. Okay, again, we're just trying to improve our pieces. Okay, they now play their knight out here to h6. Now here is another useful point. We are attacking this knight with our bishop, okay, and also behind our bishop we also have our queen. So we're effectively attacking this knight twice. How many defenders does it have? Well, it has the bishop and the rook. Okay, so it doesn't really make sense for us to capture the knight because bishop will capture, defended by the rook, and that then would be attacking our queen, which we don't really need. So there's no point capturing the knight now. However, something else that this move means is that black really can't castle now, because if they castle, the king will come to g8, the rook will go over to f8, and then the rook is no longer attacking this knight. What does that mean? It means that the knight is then only defended once, but attacked once twice. Okay, so we could take the knight, and if the bishop recaptures, queen takes, because the rook wouldn't be there to defend. So that, again, is making life harder for black. Black would love to get their king to safety, nearer the corner, and right now they just can't do it. We now play h3, and this is a prophylactic move. It's a defensive move. It's a preventative move. What are we trying to do? Well, you have to say, well, why did the knight come here? Well, one idea, it might want to come to g4. It might want to come into our camp. We don't want that. The knight can't come here because it's attacked by a pawn. So we've moved our pawn from here to here, and that is now controlling this square. Note that this pawn has given up control over the square g3, but that's okay because there's nothing about to move to that square. All right, it's also preventing the bishop from coming out to a nice square. The bishop also can't go there because of that pawn as well. So if this bishop is going to develop, is it going to come to e6? It's not a fantastic square for the bishop. So black now pushes their f pawn forward, kind of maybe opening up a line towards the king at some point, but attacking our bishop that's annoying the knight. So what do we do? Again, we can't really capture this knight because bishop takes and then our queen has to move. Right, so what we're going to do is we want to keep the pressure on that knight because that knight being there is preventing black from castling his king. So we just drop the bishop back here to e3. We're still eyeing up that knight. We're still preventing castles because the rook can't give up the defense of the knight, or the knight will be lost. And notice that again, the knight can't move forwards. Black now plays their queen again. And again, this now, because we completed development, right, 4 moves ago, we are now in a much, much stronger position. And this also raises another tactic, if you can spot it. And again, it's down to this knight that's moved once, twice into our opponent's half. Okay, our knight now gets to move to b5. This is called a fork. We are attacking 2 pieces with 1 piece. And both of these pieces, the rook and the queen, are higher value pieces than the knight. Again, a knight attack can never be blocked. So that queen again is going to have to move, and she doesn't. Right? What black does is move the knight backwards which defends the queen rather than moving the queen. So we can either now capture a rook for free, because our knight might be able to escape and escape with its life and come back here, for example. But also we can take the queen. Now if we take the queen, then knight or bishop or king can actually then capture. So then we think which is best. If we take the queen, which is worth 9 points roughly, we will then lose our knight, which is worth 3 points. Okay, so we've gained 6 points of material there. We've won 6 points. Alternatively, we could take the rook, which is worth 5 points. So we take the queen, because that's 6 points now. Right, we're plus 6. It says it down in the corner there next to where it says white. Because we've won a queen, they've just won a knight. Okay, so black has developed a knight off of here. We're in a very, very good position. We've still got both bishops on the board. We've got good control of the center with a load of pieces. Knights and pawns and everything is controlling that. Okay, so now, again, it's our turn to start to attack. And this is a lovely position to be in when you've completed development so quickly and your opponent still has failed to. I mean, still this bishop can't come out into the board. Still the king hasn't castled, and really can't because we maintain the pressure on this knight. So now, moving knight to here means that we can attack this undefended pawn. So what's black going to do? They move the pawn forwards. Now attacking our knight. Okay, they've then given up some control over this, and they've given up the defense of this pawn. Notice this pawn is now not defended, whereas on the previous move it was defended by the g-pawn. Right, they've moved forwards to get out of the attack, and now our knight again moves into their space. We're up in material, and you might think, well, can't their knight take our knight? Well, it can. But that's good for us. Why is it good? Because we can recapture with the pawn, and yes, we end up with doubled pawns on the f file, but we are opening space up on the central e file, which is where black's king still is. And this again is a fork. We're attacking the knight, we're attacking the bishop. The knight is defended, but the bishop is not. So what are they going to do? They don't do anything. They push the pawn forwards. Right? Your opponents will do this, and now we have options. We can capture a bishop. That comes with check. We can also capture this pawn, and that comes with check and also attacks this bishop and this pawn. So lots of options. So we decide to capture the bishop. We've just won more material, and we've got it for free. And it comes with check. Remember, an attack from a knight can't be blocked. If the knight can't be captured by anything, which it can't, again, that means the king is going to have to move. King comes forward. We bring our knight back now, again with check, and also attacking this knight. Notice that because we are up now 9 points in material, basically we have a queen and our opponent doesn't, then trading off material is going to be better for us. If we trade off the knights and all the minor pieces and all the rooks, then we're going to find ourselves in an end game where we have a queen and black doesn't. So again, if black takes our knight here, we will be very happy. They don't, they move the king out of the way, and now we grab this pawn. Free material. We could have taken the knight and traded it for our knight, that'd be perfectly fine, but let's get a free pawn. Okay, they move their rook across, adding a second defender to this pawn, which was already defended, by the way, by the bishop. And now again, it's time for us to think about simplifying the position, trading off material, if we can, to try and get to a winning endgame. Okay, so we take the bishop, rook recaptures, right? Now, they have 2 rooks, we have 2 rooks. They have 2 minor pieces in the form of 2 knights, we have 2 minor pieces. But the big difference is we have a queen as well. And now comes a very interesting kind of fork in the road. There's lots of things that you can do here as white, but at this point in the game, what we need to be thinking about is securing a winning position. Okay, so notice that our rook is in line with black's king. Okay, what we want to be doing is we want to open up lines of attack towards that king. We could, for example, put our bishop here and force more material off the board because black can't get the knight and the rook both to safety. We're going to win one of those pieces. Even if they move their knight here, we take the rook, lose the bishop. We've won more material because the rook is worth more than the bishop. Okay, so have a think what you would play in this position, and then I'll show you the move that we found. Okay, the move that we decided to play in this game is a sacrifice. So we give back some material because we're well up in material. We're plus 10 points right now. Okay, the move that we play is actually the best move. We capture this pawn on g5 with our bishop. Okay, now why would we give up a bishop for a couple of pawns, right? It is a couple of pawns because after they recapture here, okay, they recapture here, we can recapture with a queen, so we've won 2 pawns for the cost of a bishop that's worth roughly 3 pawns. Black decides not to do that and they just move the knight out of the way. So now we just move the bishop. We're still attacking this pawn, which is a weakness, and we're doing absolutely fine. They move their knight back to there, and now what have we got? Okay, we've got a lovely bishop here. Notice this bishop's only moved once in the game, right? It's now controlling squares really deep into black's territory. This bishop's attacking this pawn, which is defended once, right? Our queen is attacking this knight that's defended by the rook. So really try and just make a note of everything that's defended, not defended, what's defending what. Okay, so this pawn, for example, is not defended. This pawn is not defended. This pawn is defended by the knight. This pawn is defended twice. This pawn is not defended. Nothing's defending that rook and nothing's defending that rook. These are all weaknesses on black's side of the board. Okay, so now what do we want to do? Well, we want to attack the king, right? We've got everything going for us right now. We want to attack the king. We want to open up lines. So the next move is f4, pawn to f4. We just want to bust a hole in this part of the board. Black lifts their rook, we capture the pawn, and notice this pawn here is now in a pin as well. This is an absolute pin. If they try to capture with this pawn, they can't, because it would put the king in check, and you are not allowed in chess to put yourself into check. We're attacking this pawn twice, actually 3 times now. It's only defended once, so they actually here move their king, right? Not a great choice. I think probably knight takes here would be better, but black is in a horrible, hopeless position now. We capture the pawn here. Notice it's defended twice, right? And it's attacked twice. It's attacked by the knight and then by the king. So they can't really take, okay? We now push the pawn forward with check, defended still twice, right? Notice how we've really opened up this file here and made this rook really, really strong. King moves to one side. We now come in with our queen, right? Notice this is only our queen's second move. She moved once to get off the back rank and connect the rooks, right? And now it's time to bring her into the attack. We've kept her for later. Okay. Now there is actually a really, really quick finish here. There's a lovely finish, which I think I posted in one of my shorts recently, but I would never expect a beginner to find it. You can actually play your queen into the corner here, forcing the rook to take, and then we take and make a new queen defended by this. However, the move that we found is queen to d8 check. King moves here, right? And notice we can now win this rook, we can win this rook. Now you might think, well, if we take this rook, the king can take our queen. Well, yes, he can. And in fact, that is what we do. King takes queen, we get another queen, king moves here, and we come in. And now there's a couple of ways to checkmate our opponent. The queen can take this knight, or the rook can take this knight. Even if queen takes, the king can't go to this square because of our bishop. Remember, bishop's only moved once in the whole game. Okay, so we take here with a rook, and it's checkmate. Okay, so there you go. We'll have a quick look at the review of that game. Like I said, it was pretty accurate. I think we got like 90 accuracy on there. Okay, 91.6 accuracy. Okay, an opponent didn't play bad at 76.1, so that's higher than you would normally expect an 800 to play. And it's got us here at 2150 rating against 1350, so black did play a lot higher than their rating. But there you go. So just laying a load of chess principles on you there with a very, very good example game. Now, if you're kind of trying to get over the 200 mark, I wouldn't expect you to know all of those principles or to be able to apply them in real games. But the point is to try and at least picture what they are. Watch a few videos, and just try and take on board what you can remember and what you can actually apply in your own play. Okay, because you're starting from this position. So what you want to know is, okay, what are the next basics out that aren't yet in my habitual thought process? Okay, but the kind of idea is controlling the board, things that we've talked about, getting your pieces out, don't move the same piece twice in the opening unless you have to, that kind of thing. But you can see from this game that our very quick development at the start of the game in the opening phase just made life a lot easier later on. Okay, so I hope that has gone some way to answer your question. This channel does like to provide material and content to help beginners to improve. I hope that's been useful for you. So thank you for your question. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.